Good afternoon, my fellows at TEDxXuefu Blvd. I am Joslyn, a Gen Z, meaning home. Today's topic is new, but as a new generation, please allow me to share about the almost forgotten, about oblivion. Talking about oblivion, what will you think about? Oblivion, or forgetting, composes a painfully significant part of our life. Every day, we are more or less forgetting about things. This is how it happens. Your brain may fail to retrieve the correct words when it comes to composing slightly complicated sentences. I will blow a friendship when I cannot recall the funny thing that my friend told me the day before. My mind has become old and rusty, we would say. I hope it could be brighter. Yet, just like many other teenagers, the horror and agony of oblivion never really troubled me. Not until last summer. Almost all the pictures I took at the time now offer me such a feeling. A feeling that something is tipping on the brink of remembrance, that something precious was giving out its last gleam of light. That was the time when the memories shed off layer after layer. After a long time of jet lag, unstable routine, and some utter unknowable reasons. It was also then when I started to conceive an answer to this question, a question I wish all of you could take some time to think about. What are the memories that keep fading yet continue haunting your mind? The story began with an online course I took last summer on contemporary art. It was taught by a professor from the University of Chicago in Eastern Standard Time, American time, and I had to stay awake until 5 in the morning to catch the classes. When I attended the classes, the lamp was dim and I was dizzy, but on the screen, the world was flamboyant, fresh, and vigorous. At the time, I was learning about modernism, and we have much more styles. We have much more media, much more forms of art to be explored. Susan Sontag wrote in her note on camp art that the age is one of mockery, of transience and audacity, a break from the age of unification struggles, a complete openness to the new. The Wu Tai Manifesto demands artifacts to speak for themselves and completely transcend their creators. I was actually very into this new media art. I let the colors flow into my world and reshape it by turning it upside down. I liked the absurdity, critique, and absurdity it bears. I knew the art was not nonsense, but a thorough subversion of the past, an artistic and somehow romantic expression of philosophical reflection. And I liked the idea of treating the subversion of existent beliefs as the only belief. This belief was impermeable and shiny, one that was capable of justifying any refusal to the old, to the anachronistic, and the flawed, without provoking the disturbing poignance which always did exert on me when I was little. I grew up in Shenzhen, the city famous for its short history. I don't speak any vernacular language, and I only speak modern Mandarin and English. I never had a root besides modernity anyway. The epitome of my mistakes toward the old started last spring when my grandparents moved into Shenzhen to live with my parents and me. When they arrived at my house, they hugged me and said, "You didn't change much. You grew taller, you became prettier, you became thinner as well. It must be a hard time at the boarding school. How's school been? Is she still living nearby, that girl who visited your house often when you were in the 4th grade?" And I was like, man, how do you manage to ask the exact same set of questions every time we see each other? One day in May, my grandfather and I were walking through the district where I lived when I was like 5 or 6. My grandpa said, "Do you still remember here? The place where we did role playing and where we climbed the pole?" He pursed his lips tightly into a smile. He really seemed struggling to make this action, and I noticed how his eyes were somehow becoming turbid and yellowish. I was quite sure he was not seeing the same thing as he did when he was younger. Then he would tell me about the bus that we used to catch together when we crossed the road. At a time, he still ran faster than I did. There were many memories we could address together, and in his mind, these memories seemed to be a filter glued on the top of reality. And if my grandpa's fidelity to the past was on the behavioral level, my grandma's fidelity had reached a level of obstinacy. Since I had memories, she has been sneaking meat into my bowl and supper, and sighing that I'm too thin and ought to eat more when we finish the meal, letting out her grievances about young people at the dinner table, and the worst of all, frowning and throwing temper at whoever she fully trusted, and grinning at those she did not. Typical grandparents. Typical same old stuff. It happened last year, 4 years ago, and maybe before I could even remember. But this time I was near a point of annoyance. The notion of gratitude and fidelity I was educated when I was little has transformed into one that told me to speak up for myself graciously for anything I don't see as justifiable. And then there was one day when my alarm clock's battery became dead. I woke up that day at 9 in the morning and found out that I had kept all my blankets away in my bed. The class had been over for an hour. My grandma walked in with a cup of water and said, "Lucky that you don't have class today and can get some more sleep." It was then when I, for the very first time, was struck and horrified by the fact that I was losing and forgetting things increasingly often, and I lost so much of them. At first, it was my childhood friends, my childhood memories, my childhood hobbies, my first dreams. Then it was my intimacy with my grandparents and my parents, and then even the understanding and generosity I hold to them. There are still other things, such as free imagination and childlike pure bliss, that somehow retain but are on the edge of diluting. When I look back on the flamboyant colors of modern art that morning, some images were intersected together in my brain. The dancing light and hues, the debris of the World War II, the smoke from the turbine and urban tumult, and the prospect of re-establishing the society, restarting from nothing, forgetting all about the past, and looking only into the future. On the right side of pure and bright newness is a self-aware, radical emancipation from the old, something worth appreciating, but also destined to bring about the destruction of self, a sense of death behind birth. Later, on a bright weekend morning of the summer, I was reading an online article. It was a very warm, almost heavenly morning, I remember. The title said, "Nostalgia, a deceptive retrogression," which means going back in time. As I was reading, my mother peeled an apple and put a fruit bowl on my desk. Retrogression, I repeated the word in my brain. Retrogression? The article said that the past tense has covered too much imperfection and beautified too many ugly things. Well, I have to agree on this point, but we have gone far past the age of positivism, with a firm belief that everything is progressing with time. I asked my mother, "Do you regard yourself to be on the shaft of retrogression, an anachronism? Do you see your memories fade and your ideas becoming somehow obsolete? And do you feel bad for all of these?" "There are always things that go into value," she said. "You hold on to that to make your existence make sense. You hold on to that and you go on to feel the world as much as you can, and remember it as well as you can, and that will be enough." It wasn't oblivion that horrified me, I came to realize. It was the numbness, the choice that I made to be calloused about the past, about what may bring about perplexity and internal conflict. When I was in primary school, my classmates called me a nerd. I didn't want to be a nerd, so I thought I had to grow up quickly to stop being called a nerd. I had to run away from this memory as fast as I can. And when I was in junior high school, my classmates peeked at my notebook without my permission and called me a good old mushy fiction writer. I didn't want to be called that either. So I thought I had to run as fast as I can from that memory. And the thing might be much different in your cases, but anyway, that is how we adapt to numbness and to feeling nothing bad about oblivion. We think that nothing is going to hold us back after we get rid of the old and the unwanted, and that we are going to embrace freedom in its very essence. But are we really freed after we break again and again from the relics of the past? If we do not value anything besides subversion and devaluation, we will eventually become the one devalued and forgotten as time goes by. That was is what I discovered in the morning. No one would be aware I was absent from the class, and I was so effortlessly forgotten. Later, when we were assigned to create our own new media art, I created an art project on the topic of error. Error in the digital world known for its precision and efficiency. Error in the modernized bliss of the modern people. What I wanted to address was the transience of perfection and the permanence of flaw. The world and every one of us is losing its information every single moment, and we should be aware. We should always be aware. What can we preserve if all are destined to be left in the past, to be dumped in the casket of the past? Do you still remember the question that I asked you earlier on the memories that persist to haunt you? There shall be love, passion, and perhaps a somehow obsolete yet sincere attachment to someone or something. Starting from the contemplation on this question, you are now entering a right path of exploring your identity, and therefore establishing a figure that wears not just a shell, but a rich soul that surpasses mortal existence. You might recognize a wall if you know something about architecture. This wall belongs to the Ningbo History Museum, constructed by the famous architect YiFan Zhu. When you examine it, you can observe the tiles, the concrete and bricks, and some in deeper grayish hues and some in lighter colors, as if it has been subjected to erosion and weathering for like centuries. Yet it was constructed not until 2008, and now stood along the highways, boulevards, and urban sites. They're monumental, grim, and archaic. In contrast to the lightness of the era, the glass windows and the thin, linear walls and the avant-garde shapes of the modern architecture, it sits in the urban area like a historical fortress, weathered and stern, reminding citizens of their collective history. This was how the past was commemorated. The history, with all the decades and the misfits it has, all being put into our view, provoking a long-lost sense of confusion mixed with reverence. This is how YiFan Zhu preserves the past and gives history more value than a mere existence in the endless river of time. That is how he remembers humankind as a whole. And there are far more ways. Elizabeth Catlin captures with her camera the life of ordinary people. My cousins in Beijing and I still remain in contact through handwritten letters, and I will remember the congestion of feelings I perceive every time I see the paper and hear the rolling handwritten style. The last picture here is a letter that a man wrote to his grandfather, and we should consider every day lost on which we have not danced at least once. And we should call every truth false which is not accompanied by at least one laugh. 每一个不曾起舞的日子都是对生命的辜负，每一个不伴随欢笑的真理都只是虚妄的幻想。In the age where we celebrate the new, please leave time for the almost forgotten and make an attempt to preserve what we really cherish for longer than their existence. Don't let things just happen. Let relationships just occur. Let feelings just strike you. Let them rumble on in you, and so you may combat oblivion for just once. Thank you.